Hey everybody, Steve Burns here. So let's bring character to our 3D objects, and the texturing is one of my favorite aspects after modeling. So if I get a nice clean model, that alone inspires me to want to really bring some character to this piece. And there's several different ways we can go about this, and one of them is that we can actually utilize textures that Adobe has already given us in our 3D panel, or we can use photographic images to place it on our object, and that's what we're going to begin with in this particular aspect of the tutorial. So we're going to both use custom-made 3D texturing from natively in Photoshop, and then we're going to talk about bringing in photographic images to map onto your 3D objects. So let's go over to our 3D panel. And as you can see here, we have our 3D king and our cross. They're two separate layers. The 3D king, I'm going to hit the eyeball on and off. We can see both the king and the sphere attached to the king sitting in the same layer group. Now, I can go to the cross. The cross is by itself. I think it'll be more organized if we actually merge those 3D layers together so we have a single 3D group. So I'm going to go to my 3D panel, and we're going to access group all objects in scene. Okay, sit back and relax, watch it go. There it is. So now both objects are in a single 3D scene. I'm going to go ahead and double click it, and let's go and give this, let's call it king, and hit enter. Alright, now let's start with our king, of course. So here's my sphere. I target that. My 3D widget jumps to the sphere. And if we go down to go up to the king, it will jump to the king. That's what I like to use as an example now. Go ahead and maximize hitting the F key on the keyboard, which goes to full screen. Let's kind of zoom in a little bit so we can see a little bit better what's going on here. Alright, let's go texture our king, and we're going to accomplish that by targeting the king, and we're going to look right beneath it. Now we have the sphere here with sphere material attached to it. So your materials are always going to be directly underneath your object. I'm going to cascade that up so that we can target the king visually, and we're going to have several aspects to our 3D objects for surfacing. The front inflation, our bevel, our extrusion, our back bevel, and back inflation, as we discussed in last week's. These are our attributes to our 3D object. Now let's go texture these attributes. I'm going to start with the extrusion. That is mostly what this object is. We don't have a front or back bevel. The inflation can't be seen, which is on the top and the bottom. Okay, so the inflation will be right down in here, but we're not going to see that anyway. So what I prefer to do is to just target the extrusion. So right here, layer 4 extrusion. Right down here in the materials and the property, we're going to look at our attributes for this surface. We can change the color, the specular, illumination, its ambient. Let's pull this down a little more. We have shine, reflection, roughness, bump, opacity, and refraction. And we're going to talk about each of these as well. Now, to change the color, the basic color texture is going to be under the diffuse menu. So if I can hit this little color swatch here, let's go pull this over to the side. We can change this at random. Okay, it's on the fly. We can alter the color of our surface. Let's go ahead and give it something like kind of a brownish surface. Let's click OK, and it's all set and ready to go. Now, I can affect the shine, which is going to affect how light is going to be viewed on the object. Are we going to make the light more specular or more broader? So the less shine, if we pull this back, we get a broader surface. Where the light hits the surface, it smooths out a lot more. Now, if we want more of a hot spot, so to speak, what we want to do is go to the shine and pull it on over, and you can see it particularly right down here in the bottom. So I'm going to tap on the object and rotate it so you can see how the lights are falling onto it. In fact, let's go ahead and bring up the intensity of the light source itself. So target the light source and bring up the intensity just a little bit. We can even change the angle of the light source. There we are. We can see the hot spots right on here. I'm going to bring down the intensity just a little bit so it's not too strong. There we are. We can see the hot spots right about here. If I get in a little closer, now let's go back to our surface, extrusion. If I bring this shine all the way over, see how that surface starts to expand? So the light's diffused across the surface, or we're going to get more specular, which is what you want to have if you want more of a glass-like surface or mirror-like surface. All right, now let's bring let's keep the shine up pretty high, and let's see what roughness will do. Now roughness affects it mostly when you have a reflection, but you can see it easier when you have a reflection. But you can see right here, what it's doing is taking it out and it's roughing out the surface so that the light itself starts to smooth out a little more. See, there it is. Now it's completely gone. Hot spot's completely gone. Shine is still high, but the hot spot's gone. It's another way of controlling how light is going to be reflecting off the surface. If I bring this all the way back, we have our shine. All right, so our opacity. Let's not touch the bump just yet. Let's go to the opacity, and that you should be able to guess right away that we're actually affecting the opacity of the object. Now, what you're going to notice when you bring down the opacity, this is great for glass, because now we can take the opacity of the glass down and see through it a little bit, which is exactly what's happening here. But you're seeing the actual shape that was used to create the lathe effect or the extrusion is still there. All right. So if we come over to the front inflation, I'm going to come down to the inflation. I'm going to affect both the front and back, by the way, but I'm going to target the front. In fact, we can also target the back. So holding the Command or Control key, the front and back inflation are both chosen. We come over to the opacity and we take it down to 0. There, it's gone. That way, and we can see this as one complete transparent shape. Alright, let's go to my extrusion again. And let's bring up the opacity so we can see this as a completely solid object. Alright, we're going to kind of tackle all these with other objects, like the glass. The glass is going to be great for the opacity, the refraction, the specularity, and the reflection. Okay? Now, how about if we add some custom textures from Adobe? So Adobe has given us textures. I'm going to tap on the object and kind of rotate it around. Now remember, if we want to bring it back to default, we can go right over here to the 3D object. The king is chosen, and we can reset that. In fact, let's go back to our, here it is, coordinate view, and we can reset its positioning, its rotation, and again, if we want to move it back up in place so it joins with the cross right above, I'm going to pull it back a little bit. There it is. So once you position your object on the 0, axis, use your 3D widget to actually move it around. There were some questions about that in the on the forum, that someone was having a tough time. It's really best zero everything out, then use your 3D widget. It'll make your life a lot easier. All right, so let's go look at our extrusion material. Once again, go to the properties right below and look on the right hand side of our diffuse panel. We have this shape or this texture preview. If I hit down the drop menu, we can see both textures that Adobe has given us, including a few right down here that I created myself. I'm going to show you how to save it. For example, let's go ahead and target this object here, and automatically it's going to texture our image. Let's go ahead and pull this a little bit closer. It's nice, isn't it? Alright, now, what more can we do with this? Let's go to our drop menu again. Let's give it another texture. And I'm going to target this one also, just to kind of give you an idea how quickly you can save this. So this one is opacity map included. In other words, it actually punched holes in this object utilizing an opacity map. Kind of cool stuff. And we'll learn what opacity maps can do for us in just a bit. So if I move this around, the whole thing around, we can see we have holes punched out through our object. Alright, let's go make sure our surface is targeted, and we can make adjustments to this. Say for example I don't want red. Say for example I want to get something close to a greenish color, and we can change that. And what if I want to save this particular texture? I can do so. Go to the drop menu next to your preview. Then you'll see a little gear symbol on the right hand side. I can target new object or new material, call it what you will. I'm going to click OK for now, save time. And what you're going to see is, if we go down to the bottom, it saved that material to your menu, okay, or to your preset. Saved it as a preset. Now if you wanted to save all these presets, hit the gear symbol again, save materials, all of them. It's going to bring up a dialog box asking you, where do you want me to save it to? Save it to a thumb drive if you're at school or at home. Take the thumb drive to another computer, and then reload it back in. How do we reload it back in? Go to our drop menu, go to the gear, and load materials. It'll load all your materials so that you have them with you wherever you go. Now, right down here are a few textures that I created. I'm going to target one of them. There we go. There's just some custom textures, and I'm going to click another example. Okay, and how about this one's little green marbling effect here? There we go. Now, what I like to do is take a photograph and map over this. So again, we're utilizing the diffuse channel. I'm going to grab some textures, and I'm going to go back into Bridge, and I'm going to go access my folder on my external drive. There we go. On my Santa Monica College, go to my 3D, well, that's the 3D Photoshop. Let's go to the 3D textures and go to our original images. Now, I downloaded these textures from, you've got it, textures.com. Let's go ahead and take a look real quick. And I'm going to go ahead and select this, and let's go to, wrong web page there. Let's go over to this one here. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to access textures.com. Don't forget this because it's really handy. I love textures.com. It's a great service to CG artists, and professional CG artists are utilizing this. So all I did was I put in a couple of keywords. One was wood. There we go. And I believe the one that I chose was this larger one here, and I click and release on it. It was this option. This is the one I downloaded. Another one that I utilized was marble. And I'm going to hit enter. There they are. So I'm signed in to textures.com so I can get the larger textures. And you can come down here and peruse. I believe the one that I chose was this one here, which is, in fact, I'm going to go ahead and download that option. I'm not quite sure if I downloaded that one or not, but I'm going to go and log in first. But here, I can just right click, save this as, and we're going to go save this to our external drive. So let's go over to our videos, Santa Monica, and let's go access our raw videos, 3D textures, and original images, and just drop it on in there. And I'm not sure that one actually brought the textures in, but it won't matter. We've got plenty to play with. Alright, so if we take a look at these, now you get several options. I'm going to go back one page. And let's target this one right here. You'll find that they give you several colors, and all it is the same texture with hue and saturation applied to it to change the color. You can do that yourself. And if you look at the texture closely, especially looking at some of the details, a little line coming from on the top left corner, they all are exactly the same texture with the color altered or desaturated or inversed. So just be aware that you can actually customize your textures to do whatever you choose. Alright, so let's go back into Photoshop. So these are the textures I'm using. I'm going to go ahead and grab this textures.com marble polish. I'm going to give it that polished look. So let's go back into Photoshop. My extrusion is targeted, diffuse, and let's go ahead and replace the texture. Replace it with what? We're going to replace it with this polished marble. Click open. And there it is. Okay. Now, this is a seamless texture. So what it's done is it's basically stretched the entire texture over my chess piece. If I want to modify the size of this texture, watch what we can do. For the extrusion, go to the diffuse, hit the dog-eared folder, not edit texture, but edit UV properties. Okay, I'm going to talk about UVs in just a moment. So I can modify the size of this texture, and all it's doing is it's resizing the texture according to your command. So if I target this one and put in 50, or let's see, let's go ahead and put 50 in here, put a 0 back here. Alright. I'm going to copy that, one down, Command C, Command V, there. See, we're modifying the size of the texture. Okay, we'll go back to here, 25%, and let's apply it to the bottom. There, it's resized it. Let me go back and open that up again. Diffuse, edit UV properties, okay? So now I can come in here and play with this. I can click and hold on the UV and drag it left to right, and you can actually see it moving. So U represents the horizontal axis here. See that? So I just kind of play around with moving it around to see what it does. V represents more of your y-axis or vertical axis. Okay. I can stretch it out to get the look that I'm looking for, and that looks pretty good. I'm actually going to stretch it out a little bit more. Yeah, that's much nicer. All right. We can offset it too. All right. As you can see, I can offset it on the one direction and go to the other and offset it in the other direction. Okay, so I'm just offsetting it to left or right or up or down. Looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and target OK. Now, what if I want this to represent the actual bumpiness of the texture that I have? I want to add a little more of some peaks and valleys on the surface of this chess piece to give the feeling that we touch it and it's going to actually have a nice textury surface that's going to be based on a raw carved stone. So once again, my extrusion. This time we're going to target the bump. Replace the bump. Replace the texture with what texture? We're going to replace it with the same texture. And we sit back and relax and we're going to watch what happens there. Okay. Now, let's go back to our diffuse and look at the UV properties. And to simplify this, we're going to make it 25% by, let's say, 95%. And that's, there's a mistake there, so make it 9. Well, let's go backwards on this one. Yeah. Okay. All right. So 25 by 95%. Go down to my bump. Open the UV properties, and it matched it. Okay. So now the exact same texture is now creating this really nice texture surface. Let's go ahead and zoom in a little closer. There we go. In fact, it's better if the lighting is coming off to the side a little bit. So it's creating what's called a fake texture. It's a bump map. So if we bring the texture to the light to the side, we can see the effects a lot better. Now this bump map, as we affected the bump channel, I can bring up the intensity stronger or modify it down so it's not as strong, as you can see here. So you can decide however you like your chess piece to look. If I wanted to give it some surface qualities where it's a little more shine, let's bring the shine over a little more. Let's see what happens. Let's bring it up high. And let's go target the light source. And whenever I change the texture, I play around with that light source to see how it's actually going to be viewed on our 3D object. Okay. Yeah, nice. I'm using the standard distant light here. Yeah, real fun stuff. So play around with this as much as possible. We have reflection. So if I bring the reflection up, you're going to see the brightness comes up on the object, because what it's doing is it's reflecting the light coming from all around your 3D scene. I'm going to keep it down for now because we're going to do some experimentation with reflections and shine and specularity on glass. We're going to keep this one a lot simpler. Now, if we go over to the ball at the top, we can apply the same texture if you like. And a really cool little way, easy way to apply the same texture throughout the image without having to go back and rework every one of these little texture channels that we've just done. Right over here, we have an eyedropper tool. Inside the eyedropper panel, we have what's called the 3D material eyedropper. I'm going to take my eyedropper, place it on the surface here that I have the texture on, click and release to target it. I'm going to come up to the ball, hold the Option or the Alt key or Option key, click and release, and it's going to spill that texture right on top of that ball. Just give it a little moment and let it do it. And there we are. Nice, clean, and simple. Now it's still on the clipboard when we copy this texture, so I should be able to come on back, hold my Alt or Option key, click and release on the next 3D object, and there it is. Now you notice that what it did was it sprayed the texture on the front inflation of our cross. So we also have the extrusion of the cross. So Alt or Option, click and release on extrusion, and it will apply that texture to the side of our cross. Okay. Alright, so that's some of the basic texturing techniques. So what we've done is we target the actual attribute that we want to texture, come down, utilize our diffuse, shine, reflection, roughness, bump, opacity, and so forth. We want to get into some of these other things, but with other objects. Alright, so hopefully that gives you a little bit of a basic understanding of texturing. Now once again, we can save this one. We'll go to my drop menu right here next to my preset symbol, or preset preview, or texture preview I should say. Go to my drop menu, new material, to save the material to the preset itself. Or once again, if you want to save everything that you have in here out, we can go to save materials and then tell it where to go save to. So I'm going to cancel that out. Alright, let's go get another 3D object and discuss some other ways, some clever ways to texture it.